Hello, my gardeners. Can rose be transplanted? Yes. Roses do fall into the category, fairly big category, of all the garden plants which can be easily transplanted and get adjusted to a new location in our gardens. Roses don't have deep one-top root system. Rose roots are not very brittle, so roses are great candidates to be transplanted, as long as we are following very important rules and steps during the transplant time and after. Today I have a rose at the front of my garden. The name of it is Boscobel rose. It's David Austin shrub rose. And for several years that rose is doing nothing there. I suspect that it is regularly attacked by rabbits, which are eating the fresh foliage, and that rose is struggling. So I decided that today I'm moving it into the back of my garden, and I'm going to move it with you. And we are going to take a walk through each step of transplanting a rose, explaining all the rules, tips, how not to bring that rose into a transplant shock or the death of the plant. So let's begin. Oh, little wormy, or I will get you out of here. Well, the first question we should tackle would be, when is the best month to transplant a rose and when is not a good time to transplant a rose? Well, when you live in warmer climates, the best time to transplant a rose would be in spring and fall. We don't want to do it in winter when in majority of areas roses are dormant. And in my area, where winters are strong and cold, we can't work the soil. Also, summer would be a great time to transplant a rose, since the heat and drought conditions can bring that poor plant into transplant shock. And the difference between spring planting and fall planting, I know there is a big discussion about it, is only marginal. The difference is people who live in warmer zones can transplant it either way, in spring or fall. And for me, where winters come fairly short, very quickly, and growing season is not as long, just marginally it would be better to plant in spring, when rose roots are very easy to break through new barriers, to expand, not ready to rot, which is a very important thing. In the fall, roots are more prone to rotting if the weather is very wet. But in spring, roots are ready to grow and develop. Rose is ready to push new growth. There is not enough of strength. And spring generally is a great time to transplant the rose. The first thing which I'm going to do, I am digging a hole, and that's the first advice I would give to the beginner rosarians. Make sure you spend majority of time preparing this hole where you're going to move your rose, since this is going to be the success of your rose, the new location where you're going to plant your rose. And of course, we know that roses do flourish in full sun, at least 6 hours. And since they are very heavy feeders, we do need to amend the hole in which we are going to plant our rose. And generally, the consensus about people who plant trees is that we can't amend that soil where we plant the roots of the tree, because the roots then will refuse to go further into a less fertile soil or less hospitable soil with more presence of stones, let's say. And those roots will just stay in this little cocoon of a nice space, and they will not venture out. So now the consensus when people plant trees is, the advice is, you plant into the same soil. This way roots don't have that barrier to cross. And generally, for the beginner gardeners, roots do not cross barriers well. Let's say fertile soil and infertile soil. But with roses, it is a different story. Roses love to produce good results, blooms, and they love to eat a lot. Hence, we are going to amend the soil, but because rose roots needs to grow, we are making sure that hole is pretty big. It is to the depth of the planting you know, the height of the rose, how deep we are going to dig that rose out, but the width has to be much wider, twice wider. And keep in mind that we garden in different soil types. I garden in a very fairly sandy soils. I do a lot of organic amendments, and my soil is on the side of nice loam sand, which roses happen to love and thrive on. But if you're gardening in let's say clay soil, make sure that your soil drains well, because one thing roses do not like, they cannot live in poorly drained soils. For me, it's not an issue. My soils drain very quickly here. And for me, what I do for this planting hole, I add 1/3 of cow well-composted manure. I do not fertilize. And I mix it well, I pre-mix it, and then I plant my rose in. It is always a good idea to plant your roses on a cloudy day. And you must say, I might say, listen, this is so sunny in her video right now in her garden. How come she's planting on such a sunny day? Well, tomorrow we are going to have rain, and days after that will be very cloudy. Today happened to be very warm and sunny, but I am going to prepare this hole ahead of time, and then in the evening, when the weather and temperature will go down and sun will decline, I will move my rose. Another very important thing is make sure that your rose is well hydrated. As I mentioned in my previous videos about how to transplant all the plants in the garden. By the way, here is the link. So a day in advance, some people say several days in advance, water your rose well. I watered this site also. We have a little short time of drought conditions here, so I made sure that this soil is well watered too. It makes it easy digging for you, you know. There's a big stone here. As you can see, my hole is pretty big. Rose will comfortably fit in. Make sure that you don't squish those roots and you don't turn them around and just squeeze them into the narrow hole. Some gardeners do that, and believe me, I made that mistake too. That's not good for the rose. Make sure that all those roots are well spread and close to the same location as they were in the previous hole. But it is so warm right now. I'm going to go into the house and we will come out at the end of the day, and I will continue my replanting process with you. All right, so this is my rose. She's not trimmed, and the rosarians might have a question if we need to trim the rose during the transporting. Yes, because we want to make the top growth smaller for the roots to be able to support all this growth. And my rose does look miserable here. So first I'm going to trim it, and then I'm going to dig it up. This rose is well hydrated, so let's begin to get the best roots I can for her. She's not a young rose, she's an oldish. She's probably 4 or 5 years old already. You see the size of her? Quite small. All right, let's see. Ah, she doesn't want to be. All right. You know what? I'm very surprised she doesn't have a lot of roots spread. I hope she's going to be okay. Oh, wow. She's just coming out just like that. That doesn't look good, honestly. It's more or less like bare root. You know, let's just bring her in without this top. Let's leave this top here because I don't want her roots to dry out. This poor thing. Her root system is not big at all. You see this? Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm going just to quickly cover her roots. Now, 1/3 of cow manure, mix it well with soil. All right, a good, nice little tasty meal for our rose. She's deep, so I have to dig it deeper here. Okay. Now, the beginner gardener might ask if we need to fertilize our rose during the replanting. General rule is no. We don't want to do that for a rose because we can burn those roots, and generally it's a stress for a rose because rose is trying to get acquainted with the new area, and we are forcing with especially nitrogen to push the new growth. Remember, nitrogen is responsible for green growth, and if there is nitrogen present in soil, the plant has to take it. With other microelements and nutrients, plant can decide to take or not, but nitrogen, plant has to take it and use it, or otherwise it will become toxic in the tissues of the plant. So we don't want to do that for our transplanted rose. And what we can do, no adding any fertilizer into the hole. Later we can do light fertilization, like let's say in the months, with liquid fertilizer, let's say fish emulsion. A little bit more of cow manure. And I see different people add different organic substances. I just happen to have easy access to cow manure. But if you have something different, organic, let's say chicken manure or rabbit manure, you can use that too. All of those natural additions bring up the health of soil. Oh, this is subsoil. I really don't like how this stem, ooh, I stepped into it. How this stem looks. It looks like a severe wind damage. So I'm not going to cut it all the way down to here. Let's see how the summer progresses. If it's going to die, I'm going to cut it all the way here. And since we have this new beautiful foliage coming along, this rose should be fine here. And of course, mulching is a must, especially for replanted roses. This is a very high sun area, so rose definitely needs a good, nice layer of mulch. But that's going to come later. Tomorrow we are going to have a rainy day. It will be cloudy. And several days after that, also cool and cloudy. And just to make sure that this rose is going to be fine, I probably will put a chair here to make a shade for her for several days. And then slowly we'll open her up, and hopefully she will be thriving here. But this year she will spend to get adjusted to the new site. So I don't expect big performance from her here. But since there are not really a lot of rabbits here at the back, 1 or 2 babies, I probably will create a little protective netting like I did here, and hopefully my rose will be thriving. So another job is done in the garden. Happy gardening. See you next time.